intuition and power versus egosphere. You are not your ego. You are a soul with a divine consciousness having a human experience. The pathway to being more aware of that truth comes from acknowledging and embracing the innate ability that you have been born with. It's called your intuition. Intuition is, according to the Oxford Dictionary, the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. We are all born with intuitive abilities, whether we realize it or not. It's a gift, not a curse, which means that you are not nuts, crazy, or cuckoo. Most of us have had our intuitive gifts trained out of us, even though we still use it unconsciously. For some of us, we haven't forgotten, but we make the mistake of trying to get other people to confirm what we are sensing and feeling. This creates a lot of unnecessary stress and anxiety in our lives. Looking for validation from other people for an intuitive insight that you have isn't necessarily going to happen. Why? Because it makes people feel uncomfortable. We are afraid to be honest with others and ourselves. I have often found that we are so afraid of upsetting someone else that we will even go so far as to override our gut instincts to the point where we put ourselves or our families at risk. We will even use this as a precedent when dealing with authority, which can leave lasting emotional scars. Have you ever made the mistake of not listening to your intuition only to suffer the consequences?
Yeah.
Everybody's had that experience, right?
Over and over.
Well, I always take heart in the fact that the Buddhists say that the only way we learn and grow is to make mistakes. And all I can say is I've made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
When our son was 3 months old, he developed a chest cold and quickly became quite ill. We had recently moved to a new community and had to find a new doctor fast. I took our son to the first doctor, who said he had an opening. The examination was over before I knew it. As I left the doctor's office, I was worried, confused, and emotionally unsettled with the examination. I didn't understand why the doctor seemed to be more concerned with my son's diaper rash and not his cough and low-grade fever. As I put my son back in the car, I became very aware of the inner conflict between my intuition, which was telling me something was wrong, and my ego, which was telling me to be good and listen to the doctor. You know, good little girl syndrome. He was the authority, and you're just the mother. When I arrived at the pharmacy to have the prescription filled, I watched as the pharmacist read the prescription. He looked up at me with puzzled expression, and then he said he needed to call the doctor. After a short wait, the pharmacist he said he needed to call the doctor for clarification. After a short wait, the pharmacist handed me the bag with 3 small bottles inside, and he looked at me and he said very sternly, "Make sure you read the directions and follow them exactly." My stomach lurched as I became filled with even more fear and apprehension. Despite all my misgivings and the internal battle raging between my intuition and my ego, I felt that I had no choice but to trust what the doctor said. When we got home, I followed the medication instructions to the letter. Within minutes, our son fell asleep. Relieved, I put him in his crib, and as I laid him down, my intuition told me to place him on his side and not his stomach and to prop him up in that position. I felt it was very important, so I propped him up, and I put my daughter to bed in her room, and then I went to bed exhausted, instantly falling into a dead sleep. It had been a grueling day, and I was totally spent. In the middle of the night, I suddenly sat straight up in bed and found myself running down the hallway and into my son's room. And these were the days before baby monitors. As I entered his room, I was confused. I remember looking down at him, and he was sleeping peacefully on his side. I couldn't understand why I was there. And as I leaned over him, watching him sleep, he suddenly arched his back and to convulse. Sorry. And then he vomited. He was gasping for breath and choking on his own vomit. Shocked and stunned, I immediately picked him up and hung him upside down to clean out his throat, and then clutching him to my chest, I ran to the bathroom and turned on the hot shower and sat down on the floor. Because I remember being told that, if a child was having trouble breathing, if you turn on a hot shower and steam the room, they can breathe. Sorry.
I think this is where you would tell any of us to not apologize. I extend that to you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So I still get emotional about that. And you know? Clutching to my chest, I ran to the bathroom and turned on the hot shower and sat down on the floor. As the hot steam filled the room, I leaned over and sucked out his nose and cleaned out his throat as best I could. And he started to breathe again. Waves of relief poured over me. And as I sat there watching him praying, I was struck by the fact that not once did he wake up.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't cry, he didn't resist my attempts or to suck out his nose or clean out his throat. I mean, I'm shoving my fingers down his throat and I'm pulling this crap out. And then, he was totally limp, and in shock I realized he was totally sedated. I was horrified and terrified. I sat there for the rest of the night quietly sobbing, afraid to put him down, and I wondered how on earth I knew what to do. In the early morning, I called my sister, who's a nurse, and after I told her what happened, she did some research and found out that the drugs I had been giving him hadn't been approved for use in children, let alone babies. One of them was still experimental. She says they aren't antibiotics at all, she said. If these medications are used in combination, they can cause convulsions and vomiting. The doctor and the pharmacist knew that, and they didn't warn me. My sister was angry with me for giving him the drugs without asking the doctor for clarification. She was angry with the doctor and the pharmacist for not warning me. I felt humiliated and ashamed. Isn't it amazing how we blame ourselves?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I was the one who made the mistake, and I was ashamed and humiliated. And she was right. I was trying so hard to be the good little mother and do as I was told. My ego fears and assumptions overrode the truth of what my gut instincts were trying to tell me. My ego felt shame. My intuition felt relieved I had listened. The whole incident taught me a very vital lesson. It showed me that my intuition was right and that my ego disempowered me by trying to keep me small and afraid. I promised myself then and there that never again would I ever let that happen. I was never going to risk offending another person for the sake of my family's health and safety, and the entire incident was a real wake-up call for me to start listening to my intuition with more respect, even in a crisis. So needless to say, I got a little blunt.
Wow.